We think of my Mom Jayne, everyone. I'm David Canfield with the Hollywood Reporter. Thank you all so much for being here. Without further ado, to start, the director of this beautiful film, Mariska Hargitay. And the producer, Trish and Leslie. What a response, guys. Very deserved, though. Just standing backstage and hearing that beautiful narration again, Mariska, I wonder if we could maybe start with that part of the movie, and if you could take us inside the actual experience of recording what's such an emotional reflection and culmination of what this film became.
I'm feeling very emotional right now. I watched the film again with you all, and it just brings up so much feeling, and that moment was quite profound in the filmmaking because we made the movie, and then we set up a microphone, and then I went we were in the edit bay where we made it, and I just went in by myself and started talking. So it was really extraordinary. It was an extraordinary moment to sort of say to her what I wanted to say. And again, there's been so much healing and freedom and reclamation and liberation and again, healing in this process. It's been quite extraordinary. It's an extraordinary moment. I appreciate the question.
You can feel it watching it, listening to it. You've been taking this movie around for a number of months now, and it has elicited such a passionate response, and I'm just struck by seeing your emotion even here today. What is it about continuing to share this film, get these reactions, hear that again, that is continuing to hit you as hard as it is?
Well, it's interesting today. I think that when you make a film like this, right, it's like a psychic surgery almost. And today as I watched, I was thinking about the themes, and a lot of it I did, as a filmmaker and as somebody who's been carrying this story. But a lot of it, because so much of who we are is in the unconscious, there was a lot of things that I did unconsciously that now, after watching the film so many times, I see that I did. And the themes there's so many themes obviously in the film, but the themes of secrets, the themes of regret, the themes of forgiveness. And so today, as I sit there with, a big open heart and watching it, and I really felt all of that. And again, one of the biggest themes of the film is what we carry. What we carry and how we choose. People don't know what we carry. We don't know what each other carries, but we all have a story and we all carry so much. And I was thinking part of the reason is, because I'm Captain Olivia Benson on SVU, and I played this. I would have said that earlier. But my point is, I play this character, this very strong, badass, seemingly fearless character. And so people project on me, and people think like, oh, she's so strong, she's so this, she's so powerful, I wish I was like that. And the fact is, that's a part I play, and that's part of me, but this is who I am. It's extraordinary to talk a lot about how all of us have a story and we all want to be seen, and I think there's so much strength and vulnerability, and so I feel so honored to be able to share my story. And so I want to invite people, because I hope this is maybe a path or an invitation or spark a possibility of healing when you see what's behind the curtain. And there's so many things, there's so many unspoken things, there's so many painful things, there's so much pain that we're scared to go near. It's like an open wound, right? You're like, if you have a wound, you're like, right? And so many people push it down and hide it and say, don't come near it. But the fact of the matter is, when we lean into these rough, hard, sharp edges, that's where true freedom and beauty and liberation and love, and especially self-love, is on the other side.
Beautiful.
I'm also grateful is that I got to tell this story that I've been working on, I feel like I've been working on my entire life to tell the story. And then today I was so struck by, I'm always struck by the team, but by Trish and Lessig, my producer, and who we went through this journey, and it's just so emotional to think of what we did, these last 3 years and how we did it. It's extraordinary. So thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
The song you really beaming there is when she was talking, Trish. Can you talk a little bit about how you've been reflecting on this past few months and then the past 3 years of making this movie?
Yes, definitely. For context, I've known Mariska for 27 years. I worked on the show for 14 of those years.
When I was just a detective.
Exactly.
That's correct.
Baby detective.
And I always thought she was so down to earth, and she would come to my office, which was next to her dressing room office, and she would tell me things. And it was so exciting and exhilarating to hear her thoughts about her character and just her relationships. And I felt so honored that she would share those things with me. And I immediately took to her and just started falling in love with who she was as a friend. And got involved in documentaries, and she took note, graciously enough, and we made another film together, I Am Evidence, that reflected her beautiful big heart and her foundation, The Joyful Heart, and Ending the Rib Kid Backlogs. We made a film together.
Trish directed it, co-directed it with Ita Gandabeer, and produced it again. That was our first endeavor together.
And then, she had always talked, in vague ways about her mother, and I knew it was unsettling and unresolved for her. And when she, a few years back, and I think it was in 2022, said, "I'm ready," I knew exactly what she meant. And I wanted to support her in every way possible to help her make the best film that reflected what she needed to learn about Jayne, and to really bring that to the community that we're all in about our own relationships and family and unresolved feelings. So it's been really exhilarating and exciting and a deeply psychological way to see Mariska become at peace with this, to have this incredible freedom. It's so beautiful to film. Her family is so deeply expressive and supportive, and I think everybody that sees the film feels that energy. It's just been walking on cloud nine this whole time, just feeling it and seeing it, and the magic of the filmmaking and the beauty of it all. It's just been incredible.
You said that you had really spent your whole life getting to the point of making this movie, and I think you've talked a little bit about COVID really being a moment where you knew that moment was arriving, and that was a scary time for us all, a time where life really slowed down for us all. So how did that happen in that moment? What can you say about that?
COVID, again, was a time of processing and reflection and deep reflection, I guess, for all of us in ways that we hadn't had the time to, but also talking about what matters and what's important, and refocused all of us and got us all out of our sort of, you know, the rat race of our life and the treadmill of doing. And so I had time to think about things that I hadn't. And one of the things that I was doing was, you know, sort of editing and clearing, and went into my basement and saw that box that I'd been thinking about, the box of all the letters that people had written me over the years that I felt so about my mother, and all these things that I sort of, when I got, I felt like it was too charged or too loaded, or I didn't have time to sit with it and process it. And so I put them all in a box, and I just felt ready. And as I opened them, and I saw these beautiful letters, the time that people took, sharing stories about my mother, sharing photos of my mother, saying, I think you should have this, was so deeply meaningful and resonant for me. And I sort of delved into the box for the first time and could feel myself just having new space to enter into this world. And so I started cold calling people that were all in their 90s. And I'm praying that they're still alive and that they'll answer the phone and that they haven't moved. And some did, and it was extraordinary. And now, of course, I can't remember if it was a letter or this woman on the phone who shared with me that she used to sit outside my mother's house and listen to her practice the violin. She played the violin with my mother. And it was so extraordinary to me. And just everything just opened up my appetite in my years of growing and evolving. And I finally felt truly ready. And that's when I decided I'm ready, because there were so many people and close people in my life, and especially after I Am Evidence, our people, that was the first question, they would do a documentary about your mom. And I was like, no. Am I clear? And so, and then it was just like, it was like magic. It was the light bulb that I said, I'm ready. And, you know, obviously I knew that I wanted to do it with Trish after our first experience, and it was just an extraordinary moment of like, reckoning and knowing and having that inner voice, you know, learning that I've worked so hard on, is being able to listen to the inner voice inside, that really quiet little voice, right? That intuition of knowing, and say, oh, okay, I'm ready to, let's do it.
When I've spoken to others who've directed their first film, it's, you know, maybe a lower budget indie, you know, get some actors together. This is your first movie that you've directed, and it is raw and intimate and complicated, and you've been in the deep end. I mean, that had to have felt, even just on a technical level, like you were really taking a leap. Yeah. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Again, I felt that like vulnerability is a superpower, right? It's what connects us all to our humanity. And for doing SVU for 27 years, and I also have a foundation for victims of sexual assault and domestic violence. And learning that our healing comes from community, and our healing comes from telling our story and having somebody bear witness and believe you. It was something that I understand, and when people share their stories of sexual assault, the most tender, the most raw, the most vulnerable place. And after watching so many people come forward and just bring me to my knees with their strength and bravery, and commitment to healing or taking the first step, which is so difficult. I said I want to do that too. And these were my teachers and so many people that I learned from about me, saying, watching them tell their most intimate stories and the intimate part of their lives. I said, that's where the gold is. That's where the healing, that's where human connection comes in. That is where human connection comes in. That is the point of storytelling, that we can feel connected as a species in our humanity. And so for me, how do I feel when somebody shares their humanity with me? I feel so close and so safe and so intimate. And that's when real intimacy begins. And so once I decided and I had the infrastructure, I would say, to do it, I was in, all in. And, you know, again, going back to what I first said, the idea of what we carry, I didn't want to carry it anymore. I didn't want to carry my secret. And I finally learned that this thing that I was trying to do, which was be loyal to Nikki, I realized in telling the truth, and I think that was the key, that in telling the truth about Nikki, that was the love letter to him. That this movie, like, not only am I gonna, that this secret that I kept is honoring, I'm gonna show you what honoring is. And so he's more my father, and I was so scared that somehow if the secret came out, he wasn't mine anymore, he wasn't my dad. And then I realized all the things, as you saw in the movie, all the things that I thought were not right, why he didn't claim me. All the things, the things that I projected onto all these people and saying, you didn't love me, you left me in a mess, I'm mad at you, you're dead, I'll never heal. Nelson's the devil, he had an affair and then doesn't even care. Mickey lied, what the hell with these people, what were they thinking? And then realizing, talk about being claimed by Mickey, talk about being loved and sacrificed by Nelson. And then finding out who my mother was and finding out the multitudes that lived within her, that live within all of us. And wanting to integrate and see her wholeness and see her as a three-dimensional woman. And then being able to integrate myself instead of cutting off these parts of me and going, no, that's not, but also go like, oh, wow, there is so much love, and actually claiming pieces back of myself. And again, through documentary filmmaking, that is my personal passion, that is my hobby. You know, it's like my children, my husband, my job, and documentaries. No, my children, my husband, the foundation, my job. And so for me, I learned so much through storytelling. I feel connected to the world through stories. And so I said, finally, I have a story to tell. I have a story that's just a family story. And I also understood that even though it's like, oh, it's about a movie star, oh, this is an actor's daughter, that's not what it's about. This is a family story, period.
Let's talk about the construction a little bit, because I think it's really interesting the way you make this movie. The bulk of it is conversations with your siblings, and then this expansive, really remarkable archival deep dive that you all did. So Trish, maybe you could talk a little bit about how that evolved, how you settled on how you would make this movie together.
What was remarkable was the volume of archival that we were able to tap into. I mean, Mariska alone had over 10,000 photos during the pandemic that she started to organize and archive, and they were really beautifully placed for us. So that was a great beginning, and we hired a very talented archival producer, Lindsay Schneider, who started immediately pulling all the things that Jane, being the most photographed woman in the world, there was a lot out there around the world to find in Europe and America, and we were able to really pull all that in and work tirelessly at bringing from Mariska to see, and we had a very talented editor, Judy Marlowe, and we had a few other folks help us in the editing team. And we really just started to go from the beginning. I mean, Mariska knew clearly how she wanted to begin the story and really show her wanting to get the answers. Like in the opening, as she walks around what was her former home as a child. You know, now that there's a construction site there now, and literally picking up the pieces of her life. So it was such a brilliant moment, and reflecting on that moment there. So I think it really began with that, and then there were, as Mariska said, there were a lot of people in the letters who said they knew Jayne, and we did partake in trying to meet some of them, but it didn't pan out the way we had hoped, and we really thought that the people that knew Jayne the most were her children, and the closest family members, and Rusty, who worked for her for 10 years. So we decided together to focus on those voices and how profoundly beautiful they are and what they reveal, because there were things that Mariska's siblings told her that she didn't ever know. And I think that was part of the investigation of it all.
And they were initially a little reluctant to participate, right?
They were reluctant and I think scared, you know, and didn't want to go back into the pain, trauma, their feelings about losing their mother. And I think, again, as so many people do, and how we try to survive is to move on, move on, move on. And I think that's something I've learned over the years, and sort of my motto has been, the only way out is through. I've learned that over and over and over again. And so that was my secret dream, I think, for my siblings. And one of the gifts of the film was, although they were reluctant, they gave me the gift of their trust. And that's what they said. They said, I don't know, my brother says, I don't know what you're getting me into. He's like, why? You know, that's in the past, blah, blah, blah. And then he goes, Mom, Mariska, I trust you, so I'm in. And at the end, you know, they all said thank you. And I think it's been an extraordinary healing process for them as well. And one of my favorite moments is when I flew to LA I live here. When I flew to LA to show it to my siblings, after we all sat together, and originally it was 4 seats, and then we ended up in 2 seats. And like my sister and I were in one, and my brothers were in the other, and we were all connected, like holding hands and arms around, and just, you know, it was so extraordinary. And then after we sort of hugged all together, and my sister said, I feel like we're 4 people with one heart. And that was the moment where I went, the exhale of, I did it, we did it, unscathed. And they were so happy. And for me, a gift for me, but a gift for them, and it's their story. And I just wanted to make sure that I honored their story. And again, you know, through the storytelling, what we found, as Trish said, we had interviewed a lot of people, and great interviews, some of them, but they just didn't fit in the story. And then when I realized that here were these, you know, 5 kids, and then 7 with 2 new ones, picking up siblings left, right, and center. Maybe some of you here tonight or this morning are related to me. But realizing that we had to go through each of the lenses to come through the healing, because all these people had different perspectives on the same story. And again, that's the beauty, and that's how we break through to, you know, portrait and the healing of it, and you know, storytelling.
It had to have been just fascinating, strange to have that level of access in the archives to who your mother was publicly, privately. I mean, I can't imagine what that would feel like.
It's so insane. It was such a gift, I thought, from God and from the heavens and her and all of it, because part of the reason that I had such a complex relationship with her and complicated relationship with her was, you know, again, it was the pose, it was all the sex symbol and all that, and I just wanted a mom and a normal mom, and, you know, enough with the bikini and the heels and the posing and the leopard and this and all of that. It was just too much for me as a young child going, why are you talking like that? Why? Why does the voice appear? That's not authentic, and I didn't understand it as a kid. And so the goal was, who was the person behind the pose? Who was the private person? And so I would see a photo and I'd be like, oh, like a private moment. And so not only did I find that in photos of things that people sent, but in the amazing archival, but with video and film, there were so many moments. And so it was just an extraordinary gift. And I remember, I love telling the story because I'm friends with, newly friends, well, not now newly, but I'm friends with Ron Chernow, who wrote Hamilton, the original book. And I remember he was one of the people, because I'm such a Hamilton file, I saw it 27 times. I'm proud of it, I'm proud of it. I thought that was just an extraordinary story. And when I first met Ron, he said to me, because it was after I Am Evidence, and he said, are you gonna do a documentary? And I said, no, Ron, everyone's dead. And he said, he's written books, by the way, on like George Washington, Grant, Hamilton, and he looks at me and he goes, I can help you with it. Which was so funny and so ironic. And although he did not help me with that, the point is that he gave me this kind of wonderful permission that I thought like, oh, it never occurred to me that it was possible. And so I went, oh yes, people do it all the time, and they write things and make things about people who have passed. But then, you know, the gold was in the siblings. But it was just an extraordinary process. And the archival, again, just fell out of the sky. We didn't, I mean, it was so difficult for us, and for me, and the editor, for all of us to choose between the abundance of archival. I so wanted to do, I mean, you can see it in the film, I peppered it in, but my mother had a really great sense of humor. And my father had told me that growing up, which is not something I could see so much. But we would watch the archival and we'd be like, she's so funny! And so I wanted to do like, you know, a solid 10-minute section of just her witty, quick comebacks, because she was fast. But, you know, in documentary filmmaking, not everything gets in. And,
you would have had a different relationship to that material, someone who knows Jayne Mansfield more as, you know, who she is.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that, Trish?
You know, I saw all the shows that she was on, like the game shows, and it was really remarkably impressive. She just knew exactly what to say, and you get an indication of it on the Jack Parr show where he says, can you play violin? And she goes, I play. And, you know, like she was really smart at going along with it. You know, when he was, you know, it's humiliating to be, she's trying to be taken seriously, and he says, okay, shut up and kiss me. You know, she laughs it off, but you know, we all know, like that's
such a brutal part of the movie.
Yeah, it says at the end of the film.
Thinking of how women were treated.
How hurt it must have been. How hurt it must have been. But there were so many game shows she did.
So many.
I think we need to do a little follow-up, like a 5-minute piece. I think we need to go back and get the edit room, put these game shows together of Jayne and put it on, you know, Instagram or something, because we could have made like 2 or 3 movies. We talked about it
all the time. I could have, sometimes I think about even just now, I'm like, should I go back in? And I'll get a different editor, right? Just with a fresh eye. And because we could have made 5 movies. Truly, we could have made so many movies with the archival. So, but this is the story that I wanted to tell first.
Well, I will see 4 more movies. We are at time, Mariska. Trish, thank you so much. Thank you all.